Welcome to Pitch It To Me Podcast, a show about the subjective past, present, and potential future of Flesh and Blood design. Today's episode will be about the strengths and weaknesses of instants. You can find us across all socials such as Bluesky and Instagram at Pitch It To Me Podcast.
I'm Clark.
I'm Joel.
And I'm Fuzzy.
And that means we're a Pitch It To Me Podcast.
Woohoo! Back with another great episode. Guys, do you know what just happened?
Spoilers!
Yeah, we had some great
This is my
spoilers
only
this
hit of
weekend.
dopamine this week.
The only?
Just about.
Bro, you need to get on TikTok. That shit's got tons of dopamine.
I actually deleted that for a while because I was like getting really stupid.
You know what's been hitting me lately? Pharmacy TikTok.
Yeah.
Oh, you're cooked, buddy.
Yeah, it's been scaring me a little bit, but then causing me to look up some actual researched opinions. So,
Oh, wow. Before I stopped, I was on cell phone addiction TikTok.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, this is probably the time I delete the app for a little bit.
that's funny.
That's what I feel like every single time I get to alternate worlds. Like whenever I find like the alternate worlds or like the past lives people, I'm like, I'm in too deep.
Yeah.
I've been online for too long.
That's so funny.
The endless scroll has taken me to here, and that means that it is too deep.
I scrolled too far.
Yeah, surface for some air. But spoilers. We had some really nice spoilers come out this weekend. For one, they announced 2 brand new armory decks. The Slippy Armory deck and the Reinar Armory deck.
Yeah!
Honestly, I'm pretty happy about both. I think Slippy is a really powerful, fun deck that is straightforward, and it's a really good learner experience. It's why I chose Slippy when I made my 60 for 60 deck list for Assassin. And if they take literally anything from what I did or do any similar design elements to what I did, I think it'll be a very successful deck.
Do you think they're going to reprint Flick Knives in the
No.
Arachne
Oh,
Slip Through
that
the
would
Cracks
be
armory deck?
crazy. Actually, I don't think there's any legendaries in there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless they
Do you
get
think
majestic.
deal? It would either have to be better than Flick Knives, or it would be them throwing away a majestic slot, right? Like,
Oh, they've done that before. let's not pretend here.
I'm a little worried about the deck. Like Slippy's already like the best assassin right now. He has probably tied for the most national wins out of the season. So giving him more power, I'm a little hesitant about, but making a previously promo only hero more accessible seems like a good idea. I'm really excited, however, for this Reinar Armory deck.
yeah.
Yeah, the new card that they showed off for the Reinar Armory deck, a new blue 6 for Reinar.
They knew their market. They were like, what's one card we can show off to get these Reinar players fucking pumped? And it is a blue 6 with very little other jazz. Although it does say beat chest on it, which means that for us design nerds like Clark and I, who've said on the podcast repeatedly, beat chest and super slam, maybe.
I didn't because I'm a trendsetter, you know. I don't follow the trends. It's so funny. I recall this keynote I was watching. Actually, I think I was there. That's why it was so vivid. Where someone was asking James White, like, "Are we gonna get a blue 6?" This is like early, like like 2 years ago. Like, "Are we gonna get a blue 6? Come on, it doesn't have to block. It doesn't have to be playable. We just want a blue 6." And James White goes, "I know what you guys would do with it. You're not getting a blue 6." And it's so funny that they're returning both in Super Slam and the Armory deck as like literally 0 defense. That's just too funny for me.
Yeah.
We also got 2 expansion slot spoilers. Take the Bait, which is a cool Riptide card, and Blood Follows Blade, a cool Kasai card.
I've never seen so many lurkers in our chat just, what the fuck? This Riptide card is crazy.
I've also never seen so many people excited to play Kasai.
I know.
Like, so many people came out of the woodworks to specifically say, I am really excited for Kasai. And like, I want to consider building Kasai off of just this card. I think it is a great design. Maybe it's too good.
This card's fucking gas and it deserves to be. I don't care.
Yeah. LSS really said, what do you mean we can't push Warrior?
Yeah. So I'm like, I know it's broken and I'm going to say it's broken every time I use it. And it's going to be nice to have like an even playing field, so to speak, because she was already the best warrior by far. We also have a top 16 placer of the AGE Pro Circuit in our midst. Can you guys guess who? It's not me.
Well, for the past 2 years, it's been Fuzzy.
Yeah, but not this year.
There's been a status quo change, brother.
It's Clark Moore. He's been terrorizing the AGE circuit, victorying here, leviating there, and
Terrorizing is the wrong word for what I've done. I've kept showing up and bashing my head against this wall of CC, and I kept being good enough to be in the top 16.
that's how we do it over at Pigeon to Me Podcast, baby.
There were some great streamed games. I highly recommend you guys go back and watch.
Yeah.
Don't watch the totally scuffed one between me and Del Taco, Anthony.
Yeah, he's been quite upset about that one.
That was a scuffed game. Like from both of us. I made some pretty big errors. He made a massive fucking error.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very tight game there. But also just what a wacky game.
Yeah. So you'll have to tune in, and we'll definitely be posting about it when it gets closer. But when Clark has his triumphant entrance into the AGE Players Invitational,
We don't know when it's going to be. This could technically come out like after Super Slam, I think, because I think Super Slam pre-release and release weekend would be like the last weekend of September. So they're either going to do it like really soon, like early September, or they're going to wait till like after Super Slam. If they wait till after Super Slam, I think it's going to be really cool to see this massive shakeup in the meta. But if they do it before Super Slam, it's going to be the same meta, and I don't know what I'm going to do. There's going to be so many Gravy Bones guys.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of Gravy Bones players at AGE, but we'll see how it goes.
Oh, I think everyone's going to jump on Gravy.
but there's no gravies here for today's episode. And before we get into the inspiration for the episode, comment down below in the YouTube comments, or send a pigeon or comment in our Discord, or I think Spotify also has comments. Let us know what's your favorite instant in the game of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, for today's episode, we're talking about instants and instant speed. This was one of those episode topics that we came up with when we were looking at what elements of fab design could we record to be a bit more generic, to be a bit more applicable throughout more time. And instance was one that came up, and I think it's a really interesting design space. I think Fab does it in an interesting way. For a game that's so oriented around the combat chain and attacking and blocking, how they deal with instance feels very different than how other games have dealt with it. Do you guys agree?
No.
Oh.
I think instants in Flesh and Blood work really similar to instants in other games. I think there's a lot less of them. That's refreshing in its own way, you know?
There's also a lot less counterplay, but that's just because Fab is young, and I think they're still like tinkering with what the best way to incorporate instances is. But I think the only other game that I think has as many instances as Fab is like Magic the Gathering, and I've played like a few others besides that like were pretty slow to adopt instant speed control.
Yeah, some Magic is like all instants, right? Like you're playing blue, and you have like lots of instants on the counter spells.
Literally everything is done at instant speed in some of those decks.
I feel like
that's what I mean when I say like it feels like it's not a massive part of Fab's design.
Yeah,
feels like a very small aspect of it, but a very important aspect.
Yeah.
But as a result, let's go ahead and jump into it. Because Fuzzy, your pitch is all about the trends of instant design space in Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, I want to talk about the vibes associated with instants.
The vibery.
Starting with the very beginning, Welcome to Wrath and Arcane Rising. So there were only 3 instants printed in Welcome to Wraith: Sigil of Solace, Bonehead Barrier for Brutes, and Remembrance. One of those gains life, one of them prevents damage, and the other puts cards from your graveyard back into your deck. And LSS, in their infinite foresight, as James White was planning out the entirety of Flesh and Blood's history right from the beginning, right?
As you do.
As he's, as the legends state, he decided that these instant cards should not block. None of them do. And Remembrance also banishes itself to try to maybe stop future recursion shenanigans from happening. Just like off the cuff, why do you guys think that is? Why do you think that from the beginning, James White decided instants should not be able to block?
I would say at the time it's because they weren't an action. If the game was dictated as actions and non-actions, actions should be able to block because they are the things that they are literally the actions you take to interact with your opponent in the combat chain. Or even though non-attack action cards don't technically go on the combat chain in the same way, I think back then in the original Welcome to Wraith Arcane Rising, all the non-attack action cards, I don't know, it just feels like those were the physical expressions of the characters doing things, while the instants didn't quite feel that same way.
So because instants feel more ephemeral, they don't block. That way you get to re-emphasize that feeling of ephemerality.
Yeah, like it feels really weird to like have an ephemeral card block a physical attack coming at you.
Sure.
That doesn't quite make sense.
I think mine's more of like well, because we know that most of the LSS team has come from Magic the Gathering, where instants are a very big part of the gameplay loop. And I think they saw how power crept some of these archetypes were getting with the amount of control magic there was. Like, I think every modern control deck at this point has like some broken ass counterspell, and maybe they thought, okay, we want there to be like impactful instant speed stuff that you can do, but we want it to be like a choice to include that card versus like an auto include. Like you're never building an Azorius control deck without counter spells, but you can build plenty of Flesh and Blood decks without these
Without remembrance.
But it's a choice. Like, okay, at some point in the game, I'm going to find enough tempo to maybe not block as much and recur some stuff, or I'm going to try and be really aggressive, but to include that card, I have weaker blocking power on some random turns.
Yeah, so to give a downside.
Yeah.
Yeah, to parrot your point back at you, you think they wanted instants to be less of a focus on the game, so their inclusion had to be more deliberate. And in order to push that feeling of being deliberate, they made them weaker by not blocking.
Yes.
It totally makes sense to me. I think one other reason that I don't even necessarily think this reason I would put higher than either of yours, but I think part of it is because they are so easy to play, so versatile. I can play Remembrance on your turn, on my turn. Sigil of Solace, same deal. I can play it whenever I want for no downside. It doesn't even cost me an action point. It doesn't matter where I sequence it a lot of the time. That because it's so easy to get out, it is inherently more flexible. So they wanted to take away flexibility in the form of removing one play option, notably blocking. Because most cards can be played, quote unquote, in 3 different ways: pitched, blocked, or played. Literally, right?
Resolved, yeah.
Yeah. Pitched, block, or resolved. Moving on a little bit to Arcane Rising, we got Irina's Prayer and Art of War. Art of War, potentially the granddaddy of all instants to have ever existed in the game.
Fuck that card.
Art of War, specifically, I think it's very fair that it doesn't block, because that's part of the downside of the card. Like, once you're running out of options to this card, that's the whole reason Art of War is ever bad in your hand, is because it just doesn't quite fit. It has a resource cost, and like you want to banish another card from hand, so it kind of asks a lot out of your hand. So it would be really strong if you could also have another option of blocking with it. It would have like very few times where that card is actively hurting you, so it'd be a lot easier to run. I don't think any of these other cards would be unbalanced if they, for example, blocked for 2. I think if Remembrance blocked for 2 or Sigil of Solace blocked for 2, even though those cards saw competitive play, I don't think anybody would be complaining that they're like totally broken if they had like a block 2 value. You know what I'm saying?
Would they also be relegated to action speed?
Nope. Like, let them be instants.
Oh, wow.
And let them block for 2. I don't think they would be overpowered. Now, I still like the design trend of instants not blocking. It makes sense to me. I'm not like totally wondering why LSS even put it there in the first place. But I can recognize, like, to me, it feels like a foresight thing that LSS wanted to put the design trend in early. That way they can push the design later. Make stronger instants down the line, potentially. Perhaps another reason why they decided instants shouldn't be able to block is because they are naturally harder to counterplay. A lot of the disruption that exists in Flesh and Blood is in the form of on hits or potentially non-attack actions, right? I can create frostbites on my turn that are going to make it harder for you on your turn to play out your cards. I could hit you with a command and conquer, and it's going to destroy your arsenal, and you won't be able to have it on your turn. But instants have the ability to get around that downside. If I have a Sigil of Solace in Arsenal, I can play it out in response to command and conquer, or I can play it in response to you giving me frostbites. So being able to play them in response to threats makes them harder to disrupt. And I believe this actually became a problem when we saw Count Your Blessings played. Count Your Blessings is a more recent addition to the game. So if we're talking about like this natural design for instants, I kind of want to use it as an example for the way that instants have always worked. Weakest Link was played in order to try to get instants out of your opponent's hands, but the instants can be played in response to Weakest Link, which kind of tampers down the amount of counterplay that you could do towards instants.
I think it almost goes a step farther, Fuzzy, which is that you could say that the way that anything works in the game is by creating a layer, right? It goes quote unquote on the stack. I know that's using more Magic terminology than Flesh and Blood terminology, and I'm a bad L1 judge because I can't just summon the judge language out of my ass. But I will say that generally the way that things work in the game is that a card goes on the stack. Like the card the card's like, hey, I'm about to do something. And the other person gets a window of priority to play instance. And that's in response to just about every single thing ever. Anytime you play a card or activate ability, the other player gets the chance to do an instant speed thing. And so the way that, because priority works in that way in this game, nothing can occur without the other player getting the ability to do an instant in response.
Yeah.
For me, it's more about priority rules than about instant speed rules necessarily. Like there's always a priority window to let the other player do something in response to something.
Yeah, like I was talking about an on hit, which has lots of priority windows in between. But even if there was another instant that said, like, look at target hero's hand and discard an instant, they could play something in response to that instant. Like, everything in the game can be responded to with an instant. So unless they made some effect that says, like,
split second,
you cannot play instants in response to this, kind of like split second for Magic the Gathering, that would be kind of what it takes in order to disrupt cards like Count Your Blessings specifically, which don't need a target. They don't really even need an opportunity. They just want to get played kind of as fast as possible.
Yeah, the moment that the layer goes on the stack, it needs its own line of text that says your priority doesn't matter here.
Yeah. I'm about to go into Rosetta. So far we've seen instants are not necessarily game breaking, other than Count Your Blessings, which we saw in Rosetta, as well as they tend to not block. But with Rosetta, we actually did see a game-breaking instant, Count Your Blessings, where the value was so strong that we felt the need to like ban the card out of the game completely. We also, in Rosetta, saw cards that have meld, which means they're two cards in one. And LSS had the opportunity to decide, should a card that is both an instant and an attack action card get the ability to block? And they decided yes, especially because these instants are kind of more the side effect rather than the main effect. You know, when I play Burn Up Shock, Shock is good, but Burn Up is the real value of the card. When I play Arcane Seeds Life, both of those parts are good of the card, but Arcane Seeds is perhaps the meteor part of the card, the reason why you're playing it.
See, that's so interesting to me because you're looking at the instant side as like this extra tacked on +1 value. Whenever I look at these cards, I see the instance as a way of facilitating the on hit or facilitating the action side of the card, which is very explicit in some of them. Thistlebloom Life says you make rune chance equal to the life that you've gained this turn. So you need to, on the card, put an aspect of gaining life on it.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I think they're all really well-designed cards.
Comet Storm Shock important by putting Shock as a layer. That's technically you playing an instant card, which then lets Volzar see it as a lightning card so that you can use it as its own amp through Volzar. Like, there's very important interactions in that way.
Absolutely.
In terms of... But I would say Arcane Seeds Life is probably the one that breaks that the most. Like, I would say Arcane Seeds Life, out of all of them. Because even Burn Up Shock, the shock is like, here's 1 damage, and if you stop it, that's 1 less card you have to block the on hit.
Yeah.
The burn up side.
Right.
So even there, I see a little bit of synergy between the two halves. Arcane Student's Life is like, I get to gain 1.
But the fact that we're getting instants that can block is the first chip in that unspoken rule that LSS has had in the game since Welcome to Wraith. Mm-hmm. In Super Slam,
oh no,
we see that rule completely fall by the wayside because Guardian is getting suspense auras, which seem to have the pattern of being a instant aura that also blocks. There's one that we've seen that blocks for 2. There's another that we've seen that blocks for 3. Right.
Mm-hmm. And there's not even any precedent like, oh, the auras get to block. It's just like it uses all the same text, but for some reason they're deciding that these ones can block.
It even feels like they could have made these non-attack actions with Go Again, and a lot of the design of the card would have been very similar.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because we haven't seen all of the suspense auras,
well,
you know?
Actually, no, because like her ability, Pleiades' hero ability is also an instant. So like they clearly want you to be bouncing stuff in response to other things your opponent's doing.
Well, I think it is intended to control the very last pop of suspense. Mm-hmm. If you play it as an instant speed on your opponent's turn, it accelerates that last turn where it pops by 1. If you play it at instant speed on your opponent's turn, because on your start of turn, it loses a suspense counter. Mm-hmm. So it technically starts on your turn, the turn that you drew it essentially, at suspense 1 rather than suspense 2. So it allows you to, I think, line things up a little bit more by accelerating some or playing it at action speed to slow it down.
That makes sense what you're saying, Clark. If I draw up my hand with Pleiades, if it was a non-attack action, I could play it on my turn, but as an instant, I can actually have 1 less suspense counter than I normally would. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, then if you played it at action speed on your turn.
And I imagine like my opponent uses their action point and they pass their turn. I now have a lot of freedom with like playing a new suspense aura, taking the counter away from that one to add a suspense counter to mine. So I have a lot of ways to play around my opponent's expectations for how my auras work. That makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. I'm definitely interested to see if this like instant speed blocking card is going to be really like pushing the boundary for the strength of a card, you know? I suspect it won't be super overpowered just because of the fact that they can block. But who knows? Like, how much counterplay are we going to be looking for these? The fact that they are auras maybe increases the amount of counterplay you can use against them because there are cards in the game that target auras.
Definitely.
Maybe that's what, quote unquote, makes it okay in LSS's design mind. Mm-hmm. So with that little history lesson, let's all keep an eye on Super Slam and try to see if these instant auras are going to be completely game breaking. But in the meantime, let's take it away to Yellow Pitch, where Clark's going to talk about things accelerated to instant speed.
Oh.
Yeah. So for Yellow Pitch, I've titled it As If It Were an Instant. A little line that we see popping up all over little Flesh and Blood cards.
Curious.
You know, in Yu-Gi-Oh, they actually have spell speeds, and there's like 3 or 4 of them. Mm-hmm. And like once...
Really?
Yeah. So if you play a spell speed 2 thing, you can respond to it with spell speed 2 and above.
Oh, that's a little bit like how Legends of Runeterra does it with burst spells.
The bursts, they just don't get responded to, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it is like an accelerated spell speed, you know? But like, Yu-Gi-Oh, there's like a tiered layer of like what you can respond to.
God, Yu-Gi-Oh really is a wasteland of nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, but with this, I want to talk about one particular strength. So this is the element of instant speeds that I think is why we see this design space, which is that instant speed things are a way of getting around action point restrictions in classes. So we were just talking about Pleiades. So let's talk about that, as well as the importance of being able to control your suspense counter tempo and planning ahead on multiple turns. I also think it's really good because a lot of Guardian auras just don't have Go Again.
Yeah.
And so how important is it for them to be able to play one of these cards and an attack to still put pressure on their opponent? It's one of the most important things that I think Guardians have consistently struggled with, is having good Go Again. And so when I look at why did they make these things instants, it's because they're trying to make it so that you can convert more of your hand more regularly by having instants.
Yeah.
But where did we first see this? So initially, in the first two sets, I think we saw it all existing in Wizard and in Runeblade. So Wizards, it was a really, really important element of old Wizards that they could play their non-attack action cards at instant speed. They had a little hoop to jump through, and if they jumped through their hoop, they got to cast it at instant speed, which oftentimes meant that they were resolving 2 or more cards in a turn, which is something that Wizards previously had a lot of trouble doing. I kind of liked it when you were looking at it that way. If you were playing Kano and you're like, well, I'm going to pitch this yellow card to play my 2 for 5 arcane spell, and then I guess I'll activate Kano's ability to see if I hit another one off the top. I don't. Okay, or maybe I want to draw that next turn. All right, I'll leave it on top. Very healthy Kano.
What a balanced way of imagining this fake Kano.
Yeah, this Kano that has never existed.
No, it exists the first time you draft Arcane Rising and you play Kano for the first time.
Yeah,
like, that's the Kano you're talking
That
about.
and like the Midwinter Cube are the two places I'm thinking of where Kano's.
Limited Kano. But I think we all know what happened there, which is that Wizards started saying, well, how much can I abuse that? How many times can I do that in a turn? How can I use that to break the economy of the game? And because it's instant speed, they can break the action point economy of the game. That's what lets them play a fuck ton of spells on a single turn. Now, they kept this design space consistent through Icelander, who said, okay, that was a big problem. You can only play 1 card a turn at instant speed. And they still said, bet? Because it was a much harder hoop to jump through. Rather than having to sacrifice an entire card, it was making sure that you arsenal it. And rather than it just evaporating into nothingness through the pitch zone, you were still generating the value of the card on your turn.
Icelander design is actually really cool. I would lose to that character every time I played against her, so it was a little frustrating, but I love what they were going for with the design.
Yeah, especially with how they limited its ability to break the action point economy of the game, right? They were still letting Wizards play on the opponent's turn by abusing instant speed, but it wasn't quite in the same way. But we've seen this become less important in modern Wizards with Acilio and Verdance from Rosetta, where they're no longer really doing things at instant speed. Instants are still important to the class. We've talked about already how Shock has really interesting interactions for Acilio, where it can be the lightning that fuels the amp for itself, for the card itself. Really cool interactions like that. The sigils are all instant speed that forces him to run a lot of instants, and his hero ability, or sorry, I guess I should say their hero ability, allows them to do interesting things with cycling through their deck by discarding and drawing new cards. Similarly, Verdance's big combo is predicated on an instant speed card that only really generates the value you need it to generate in a combo if you play it on your own turn.
Yeah.
Right? So in this way, I really like how they changed the instant speed, where it's like, yes, you get to play this really cool instant and have these really interesting layered effects that you can pay attention to, but you still have to do it on your own turn.
Yeah. Gating Verdance's hero ability while giving her the most access to instances and making Acilio's ability instant, but gating his spells with action speed was a really interesting choice. And I think it made Wizard a lot more approachable and a lot easier to deal with in the meta, because like the only reference we had up to this point was Kano. So I think a lot of people, myself included, were really worried about the next iteration of Wizards.
Yeah. And it'll still be interesting to see how do they redesign Icelander and introduce us to our next few Wizards.
Yeah.
But I do want to make sure that we're moving on and talking about some of these other design spaces, primarily Runeblade. Runeblade, I love it. I love how Runeblades get to play their non-attack action cards at instant speed. It's so cool, guys. Viscera used to have to like dedicate an entire card to giving one of his attacks go again.
Yeah.
We were like, man, we run 8 of these cards because it says your attack gains go again, and that's really good. We had to fucking struggle out there for action points. But being able to cast things at instant speed is such a cool way of getting around that. And when we cast a non-attack action card at instant speed, or I guess I should really say when Go Again resolves at instant speed, you just get a free action point back, which gives you 2 action points. It's like Go Again plus.
Yeah.
Koken Plus.
Koken
Because
Premium.
casting things at instant speed doesn't take an action point, but if it has go again, it will give you an action point. So rather than 1 minus 1 equals 0 plus 1 equals 1, but it's an element of Runeblade design that I've really loved. Typically, it required jumping through some hoop, either dealing arcane damage or playing an attack action card that almost never has go again. Especially in the older designs of Runeblade. They were really go again limited on their attack action cards. So I really, really enjoyed the design. It also helps them feel a little wizardy, right? Runeblades are in that halfway space between warriors and wizards. And so seeing a little bit of the warrior design with how important it is to swing with your weapon every single turn, and a little bit of that wizard design space of being able to cast things at instant speed, it was really fun to see them exist in this middle space.
I love thinking about Runeblade design.
But they have been expanding outside of these a lot, especially recently. Though it was very funny, Fuzzy, that you said one of the first instances of the game was a brute instant, because I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
To be fair, Bonehead Barrier, it's a damage prevention effect. And you have to roll a 6-sided die to determine how much damage prevention you're getting.
Plays this card.
And I think like early instants are just like damage prevention and life gain and like Art of War, you know?
Yeah. Actually, that is a great thing that you bring up there, which is that instant speed is so often tied to damage prevention, which is typically scaled a little bit worse than block. If we consider comparing unmovable, which is 3 resources for 7 block.
Maybe even 8.
Potentially 8. And then there is a Guardian instant prevention, or I think it's called Steadfast, where you can pay 3 to prevent 6.
Yeah.
Because prevention can also hit Arcane. Arcane gets scaled down as -1. So why shouldn't instant speed prevention effects also be scaled down by -1? Is I assume how they got there. In Yahoozles, they've been really getting away from the original design of instants and giving it to classes that typically didn't have instant speed things to do with. For example, Mech with Dash IO's design, once per turn, you can play an item off the top for an additional resource as if it were an instant, right? So now you can instant speed play your items, crank to give them go again. Hey, there's that +1 action point, and mechs are all about the extra action points. So that really tracked nicely, right? But in a way, it's also like giving them really cool, clever attack reactions at instant speed, being able to flash it in off the top.
It's definitely the most interesting mech design they've had in a while.
Yeah, or even prevention effects, right? Spend a single blue to play that 0 that allows you to prevent 3 off the top. But now you've just turned a single blue in your hand into 5 floating prevention.
Yeah.
2 for AB, and then 3 others. And that lets you cover the tall from Arcane, right? So like there's some really interesting utility, even if it's right now it's just being used to flip a boom grenade off the top and go hee hee ha ha. Lightning has also started getting this a lot more. With the original Vela Flash, it let you fuse to play a lightning spell at instant speed.
To be fair, Vela Flash was a elemental Runeblade card.
Was also a Runeblade card, yes. Even though it had lightning fusion, but we saw this expanded with the Lightning Greaves, which gave instants go again. While that doesn't necessarily fit with what my pitch is, because it's giving instants go again rather than non-attack action cards with go again instant speed, it still works. Like, it's putting them both in the same space. We have seen lightning originally just in fusion, but when we return to it in Rosetta, eclectic magnetism has the Velafash effect, but on a majestic attack, just baseline. And Lightning Greaves, I already mentioned. And it has been slowly expanding out into other classes as well. Chain Reaction is a brand new trap that Rangers have gotten recently that let them play a non-attack action card at instant speed. Very interesting interactions with 3 of a kind, specifically, of a way of getting extra blocking cards in hand.
Oh, whoa.
Oh.
Yeah, if you spend the trap to maybe use like a Findall's resource to play 3 of a kind, you just turn 2 cards into 3 cards.
Oh,
and you got
shit.
blocking value from one of them. So that lets you have a lot of block on a singular turn.
It's funny that after you do that play, you can't play defense reactions from hand.
Yeah, you can't play defense reactions from hand, which is one of the reasons why I think it hasn't seen play. But it's interesting. Spirit of Arena, another fascinating card, gives a non-attack action card the ability to get played as an instant, which is wildly important for I mean, one of the reasons why Lumina Ascension is cracked, and we keep talking about how Lumina Ascension is holding back Bolton, is because Spirit of Arena lets it get played at instant speed, so you net an action point.
Oh, yeah, buddy.
And it acts as like a pseudo attack reaction as a result. Like, really, really wacky stuff happening with that specific card. So it's really been expanding out of its other classes and finding its way into new classes. And seeing the instant design spread out like this, I found it fascinating because originally, Fuzzy, you're right. It felt really restricted, really limited, really narrow. But as the game's gone on, it's gotten wider and wider and wider. Do we think this is a good thing for the game that more and more classes are getting access to instant speed cards and instant speed play lines?
I think it's generally a good thing. I mean, obviously, Illusionist and Illusionist-esque classes are not going away anytime soon. And a big reason why those classes are very troublesome to deal with is because typically it's aggro with the most action points like are the ones that can deal with it. So if there are more classes with ways to get around either Spectra or it becomes less of a boogeyman of the format. But I don't know like what they have in store for Illusionist design. So
I really like that shout in particular. I wasn't even thinking on that level. I think that this is one of those cases where like every time something gets added to the game with an effect like this, being able to play at instant speed, it really just depends on the effect itself. You have to kind of case by case it, you know?
Yeah.
I could see some cards being like really broken and like, this combo is so good that it feels oppressive. But I think this effect by itself is not that. It's not something we really need to be scared of. And I think it's really cool when it shows up, you know? And the more classes that have access to it, the more commonplace it feels and the less counterintuitive it can feel, you know? Like it's good that more players are more comfortable with these complex rules interactions. I think that can be good for the game overall in a very different way.
You know, I'm so happy that you brought up the complexity, because one thing that I think happens to every single game as time goes on is complexity creep. And I would say this is one of the clearest examples of how Fab has gotten complexity creep. Well, I don't think we've had the same situation in Magic where it's like, there's so many words in the text box nowadays, a real issue for them. In fact, I think Mark Rosewater said on one of his blogs, like, yeah, there's a lot of text on these cards, and it's meant that we've had less flavor text because there's just not room for it.
Yeah.
And they're like, we need to do something about that.
Could you give us a quick and dirty definition for complexity creep?
Sure. Thank you so much for reminding me that I need to care about our audience's perspective. Not just about getting my thoughts out of the head. It's about making sure that they understand the
They have to go into someone else's.
Yeah, they got to go in somewhere. So complexity creep is this idea that as a game continues to be built, you can no longer design cards in the same simple way while keeping them exciting and interesting to your player base. To continue to excite and entertain your players, to keep them engaged, you need to creep, aka very, very gently and regularly increase the complexity of the cards that are being played. So the complexity of a game, of an interaction, needs to increase over time to reward players for sticking around, being aware of these different interactions, by investing the time. And for Fab specifically, as such a competitively oriented game, I think they do almost have an expectation of needing the game to become more and more complex over time. Complexity creep is almost a requirement for Flesh and Blood in my mind.
That's an interesting way of putting it. I would say it's inevitable because it's a non-rotating format. So there's just the number of cards and heroes that you have to keep track of is going to increase over time. And I think LSS actually needs to be wary of making the game too complex because for one, it can make it hard to approach the game, hard to get into the game competitively. And for two, it can make the game almost unhealthy when there's so many different complex interactions that you can come across, you know? But that we might be talking about two different things here. Either way, I definitely agree that like us seeing more accelerated cards to instant speed in the game is kind of a way of, I would say is an example of complexity creep.
Yeah. I think it's also ultimately because of LSS having this base assumption for some classes of they don't get go again. You also can't see it, but every single word I said there, I put little air quotes around. Because it's both true and not true, right? But like Guardian, I mean, let's return to that Pleiades example. That's sort of going to be a running theme throughout this episode, which is that Guardian doesn't get go again. Guardian cards very rarely have go again. And when they do, they're not that great. We've had to rely a lot on generics like Zealous Belting or Rouse the Ancients as our big sources of go again. So why did they make these things instant speed? Because they help you have quote unquote go again. You get around the restriction of Guardian not having action points by having these instants that can be played along with other actions that consume your action point. I think Wizards feel very similarly. Why did Verdance get access to so many instants? Well, because I think she needed it, because there wasn't a lot of go again inbuilt into her kit, and she didn't have a hero ability that said you can now do things at instant speed like other wizards. So you gotta give them a little bit of juice, let them use their whole hand. And I think that's a running theme that we're going to keep seeing. I don't think Ninja's going to get much, because Ninja is one of those classes that has go again. But I think it is going to happen to a lot of classes. And I think you can typically see where it's going to happen next if you look at how much go again is already present in that class's card pool.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think that is the end of my pitch. So at this point, I'm going to fall out of the pocket, look downfield, and there he is, going for the Hail Mary. It's Joel with blue pitch.
And the crowd goes wild!
Touchdown!
So for blue pitch, I'm going to be talking about instant speed interaction both ways. Firstly, I want to talk about the differences between reaction speed and instant speed and why the fuck there's two of these. Because I don't think we mentioned it on the pod yet, but reaction speed and instances can sometimes function the exact same way. So I want to ask you guys, what do you guys think is the biggest reason for the separation or distinction of instant speed and reaction speed cards, if they have either similar effects or whatever?
Yeah. So what we're really saying here is like lightning press, right? Lightning press is a lightning zero cost attack, or I almost said attack reaction. It's an instant.
That's what I'm saying.
That gives +3 to target action, attack action with cost 1 or less, I want to say. And you can pretty much only play lightning press on an attack in reaction speed. Like you can't wait until reactions have passed. And if you play it, you then give the opponent the chance to play a defense reaction on top of it again. So it's pretty much just an attack reaction, but it says instant at the bottom. And you can't really use its instant speedness in a clever way to give something plus power.
You had to like deal more damage. Yeah. You can do other niche things with it, like turn things into poppers to destroy cards with Phantasm, or use them in weird ways just to get the ability of playing an instant, like Lightning sometimes cares about. But you're right, 99% of the time it's just an attack reaction.
It's just an attack reaction. So that's what you're asking, right, Joel?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I kind of get a different read from your question. I kind of hear like, why do reactions exist in the game at all when we could have just called them instants and the game wouldn't be losing necessarily that much for it?
That's definitely not what Joel is thinking here. Joel's a warrior player. Joel's like, yeah, no, reaction should exist. What's this shit over here?
If that's your perspective, I want you to answer the question. I want to hear I want to hear what you say.
I think having reactions that you can only play in a reaction step makes the game a little bit more easy to follow and easy to learn. You know, I do think that like having a card that you can only play at one time like helps you learn the timing of the combat chain, which you're still going to need to know even if these were called instants. It would just be different. And learn that there are certain like they're very face up cards with like, I look at the card and it tells me what I need to do, you know?
Yeah.
I do think like attack reaction and defense reaction is lingo that you still need to learn as a new player. You know, you can only play defense reactions as a defender. You are not reacting to defense. It is a reaction of defense. You still have to like teach a new player how to read the card like that, you know?
Sure.
But that would be my answer to that question that I guess I made up.
I mean, you used the same words I did, so that's all good. What about you, Clark?
I think it's because of the niche interaction, specifically being able to play things on the opponent's turn in unique and interesting ways.
I think you're both right. I really like both of you guys' perspectives for sure. For me, I was looking at the lists of like the zero cost reactions and instances. And to me, the biggest difference is the scope of use. And by that, I mean, you've already mentioned the card Lightning Press Clark, which is a great example because it hits basically every attack action you'd want to use in a lightning deck, but it's gated by being lightning, and it's also an instant, and I think that's to hedge against how powerful it is because it's an unconditional 0 for 3 pump.
Yeah. Sort of tying back to what you said in Red Pitch about how they're a non-block to make them weaker.
Right, exactly. And conversely, I think a lot of the other attack reactions, like I'll use Iron Song Response here as an example, which is a warrior attack reaction, very first set. It's a 0 cost, 3 block, and it gives +3 if your opponent has blocked with a card from hand on the combat chain. And there's a lot of specific rules text there because I think it blocking for 3 makes it really powerful, and that's why it has such a quote-unquote steep requirement in order to play it. The other reason why I think they made this distinction in the design is because I looked at a list of all the instances in the game, and most of them are either relegated to a niche use case in a class or they're talented. And I think they are adding this modifier of not being able to block as a way to, again, make it a deliberate choice to include these powerful cards. And some cards don't see play at all because there are no blocks, and some cards will see play because they're so powerful that it not blocking doesn't really matter.
That's so interesting. I wonder what the math actually is on that. If most instants are class-based or talent-based.
You know, now that you mention it, it does kind of seem like there's more talented instants because talents are more of a source of magic. Like you've talked about in the lore, Clark, that like in the talents represent the magic that comes from that location in Wraith. So like having, and you've also said that instants feel more ephemeral, you know?
Yeah.
So all of that lines up very well in my mind. Like they're going to print more instants in the talents because it feels magical and ooh.
Yeah. Also Wizard and Runeblade being like the original source of making things instant speed. Yeah.
Warriors, no magic, no instants.
Yep.
And yet they do have some instants still.
Yeah.
Again, the expansion of the design space.
Yeah, so they got some really cool stuff going on in instant speed. So not all of it's just like, okay, this could have been a reaction or this could have been an email type thing. But I want to move over to my favorite part of the pitch so far is hand traps. And to briefly describe hand traps, these are cards that are typically a Yu-Gi-Oh term. Fuzzy, you're more familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh than both of us. Would you mind explaining what a hand trap is?
Yeah, I'm going to give you the quick down and dirty because I never played competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, but I remember this term coming up kind of a lot. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you can place trap cards, but a hand trap is something that you don't play from the field. It is an effect that often comes from a monster that you would have in your hand, but you would discard from your hand in order to use the ability.
Right.
And typically it's going to be a minor effect, but not necessarily. And usually it's something kind of disruptive.
And yeah, wait a minute. We've started getting those in Flesh and Blood.
We sure have. Some good examples are obviously like Ripple Away, which prevents people from making tokens from action cards.
That many -1.
Yeah, that many -1, thank you. And then Fearless Confrontation, being able to give something -1 and lose Dominate.
Oh man, the newest and biggest boogeyman hand trap that exists.
Definitely.
Really?
So hand traps are something they've been starting to print more of in heavy hitters moving forward. And it's these three key features that makes a hand trap. Number one is defined by a lack of resources spent. So it's not like necessarily a card that you pay resources for. It's usually like the keyword instant written on the card itself, and you can like discard it or destroy it, whatever. And it's usually something you play on your opponent's turn. So it's not like you discard something on your turn and you disrupt your opponent. That's not really what it's supposed to be. And there's usually some form of disruption present. So we already talked about ripple away. Back in heavy hitters meta, you could ripple away when KO casts cast bone, so he misses out on the agility token, or take the bait with the newest spoiler card. You can discard ripple away to make sure that you don't get the bait token.
Yeah, to double down on that definition, like normal disruption in Flesh and Blood is a lot of the time on an on hit. If LSS wants you to be able to disrupt your opponent, a lot of the time they're putting the effect on an attack action card with an on hit.
Which is important because it lets you then block that, right? Yeah. It allows more cards to be able to interact with that effect.
But if I'm just doing my thing on my turn and all of a sudden you're playing an instant that takes go again away from my cards, I am shook. I am surprised. That's like the feeling of a hand trap. And this isn't like a definition that I think is super hard and fast. We're kind of using it now for our discussion. So you might have like a different one. I'd be really interested to hear in the comments like what people think are some other examples of hand traps, or if any of the ones that we've talked about, they don't fit your definition. I would love to hear about it.
The last thing I want to talk about is the interaction that your opponent can do versus your instances. And I'm talking about like Exude Confidence from Monarch, which is a 0/4, blocks 2, is red, and says, while this is attacking, your opponent can't activate instances or play defense reactions if they are not blocking with a card that's like equal or greater power. The problem with Exude Confidence is that a lot of people can just play instance in response to that card or the weakest link. The other really interesting card inclusion that I like to think about is the Aetherize and Rewind cards, and I'll just quickly read both of them for you. Aetherize is a 1-cost wizard instant that negates target instant with cost 1 or less, and Rewind is a 1-cost wizard instant that negates target non-attack action card and returns it to its owner hand, but it also returns the action point.
Yeah, I think part of the reason we don't see a lot of counter spells in Flesh and Blood is because every card costs an action point, and so it's really clunky to say like negate that spell, but then like I either have to design the card to give you your action point back, or something, or they're losing their turn, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think also I want to state it just a little bit more clearly. We're talking about cards that are supposed to like fuck with instants, right? So cards that fuck with instants. Exude Confidence stops you from playing it. Battering Bolt punishes the opponent from having them in hand because it deals damage to them. And in this case, Rewind doesn't fuck with instants. It fucks with non-attack action cards. But Aetherize does fuck with other instants because it negates it by putting it directly into the graveyard without letting it resolve and get its effect. And I would say Aetherize is probably the newest space for instant speed hate, which is other instants, right? Yeah. How do you deal with the ability to respond to anything? Well, you respond to that. But I think as we saw with Count Your Blessings, okay, then they just respond to that again. Like, the attacks haven't been doing the job that we seemingly thought they could do. Because, as Fuzzy mentioned in Red Pitch, you just play your instant in response to this on-hit or this effect blocking you out of playing it. We need a split-second effect.
I agree. There's a severe lack of instant speed interaction. That's why I was able to name like basically all of them in like 2 minutes. So I want to ask you guys, what can instant speed hate or instant speed tech pieces look like, or what should it look like in the future? Like if they were to print more powerful instances, what should come up as hate pieces to counteract that?
I actually think that the correct way to address instant speed problems, if instant speed is too powerful and we need counterplay to it, I think they need to make it so that instant speed effects have to happen on your turn. That is how we deal with instant speed effects, is that we stop letting them be so powerful on the opponent's turn.
Do you mean as a rules change or as a design precedent going forward?
It has to be a design element.
Yeah, because you can't errata all the previous instances.
No. You definitely can't. I would say that maybe it would be interesting if they remove the priority window before an attack hits the combat chain for Exude Confidence.
Yeah.
So you can't, so like while the attack is like, I have paid the resources and I have declared where it is going, but you do not get priority. That would be interesting.
Oh man, that feels really important though. I can't put my finger on any examples right away, but I feel like there's a lot of interactions.
Oh yeah, I'm sure Sudden Judge is just frothing at the mouth to come after me.
I think it would be a really cool change though, because
it still only helps this one card, but
it makes that card so much more relevant for so many instant speed strategies.
yeah. Plus, Exude Compass doesn't even have to go again. There's still a lot of a lot of hoops to jump through to keep it super relevant.
Definitely.
But at the end of the day, yeah, it's like if you can just play it whenever, you're just relying on other instants to counter the instance, which then just lead to the instant speed fuckery of like, well, I do this to your instant, well, I do this instant to your instant, and it becomes like those CEDH resolution chains. If you ever watch the CEDH videos where they're like 40 fucking spells on the stack, and they're like, and now I play Flusterstorm, and you're like, God damn it. There's so much shit we have to go through. Wait, when was this played? How many copies?
I love the 40 copy Flusterstorm. That's so fun. That made me start sweating immediately.
And like, I don't think that's where we want Fab to go, because I don't think that rewards the sort of planning ahead that Flesh and Blood so far has been so integral to the play experience.
Absolutely.
So
hard agree.
I think it's just the cards that have instant printed on them need to start being fully restricted or fully valuable when you play it during your action phase.
Definitely sounds fair when you put it like that, because that's kind of interesting design, you know? Do I wait for my turn and get full value, or do I be cheeky, play it on your turn and get half value? But sometimes that's the right play, you know? I think that I will say we've seen a lot of healthy design around instants other than Count Your Blessings up until this point. And I don't think that like there's a fundamental problem. What I'm more worried about is if it gets pushed any further, like we've already seen is going to happen with Super Slam.
Yeah.
If it's just like regular auras that block for 3, I don't think that's a big deal. But I could really easily see them get to a point where it feels like they're the focus of the gameplay and they're really strong and they're uninteractable, you know?
I mean, I think you could argue that we were already there at one point in Flesh and Blood's history with Old Prism.
Yes.
And how much of her games centered around these Spectra auras.
Yes.
Now, there were a lot less tools to deal with Spectra back then. And I think Modern Living Legend has shown that that version of Prism isn't as or indestructible as I think it was back in the day.
I agree with that.
A lot of modern designs are still able to keep up combat and defeat their aura stacking.
Well, thank you guys both for answering that question. I think we got a really good insight about like what instances need to have changed about them to make them maybe more balanced or maybe just like a little bit less complex so that Fab is still an approachable game and still functions properly. But I think I'm going to call it for a blue pitch. I've talked about everything I wanted to talk about, and I think we should go to our Arsenal Zone next. What do you guys think?
I love that idea.
Fantastic. Can any of you remind me what that is? I forgot.
Oh, I'm so glad you asked. The Arsenal Zone is the part of the podcast where we all shout out a card that has been on our brains lately for whatever reason we want.
Yeah.
That seems like a good thing to have at the end of a podcast.
I think it is too. And you want to know what I think is even better?
What's that?
If we let the audience get in on it.
Hell yeah. But we can't just let anybody put cards in our podcast.
I think we have to make them give us money to do it.
Oh, there you go. Now we're cooking.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's do that. So for today's episode, we're going to start off the Arsenal Zone by shouting out a patron submission. If you subscribe to our Patreon at $5, you get to suggest a card to go here in the Arsenal Zone.
Bro, I want to be a patron. What the heck? That sounds so cool.
Well, you get one every week anyway.
That's true.
But if you want an extra one, Joel, you got to give us $5.
Right. I'll think about it.
For this week, we have gone to the spreadsheet and we've taken up our random number generator and it's given us 27. That's Tim S.
Let's go. Or is it Tim's?
It might be Tim's.
Maybe he's like being quirky with the capital S.
But I will say that if it's Tim's, there's no B. So it's not like Tim's, like the Timberlands, which is a big like New York thing. I don't know.
Timst?
Anyhow,
Let us know in the comments. Is it Tim's,
Yeah,
Tim's,
Tim,
or
let us know.
Tim S?
So Tim has suggested Leave a Dent, which is a great card from Mastery Pack Guardian.
I've never seen this card before in person, only online.
I've opened one. You get to see it. Leave a Dent is a blue 0-cost Guardian action that blocks for 3 and has Go Again. It states your next Guardian attack this turn gets Crush. When this deals 4 or more damage to a hero, destroy the top 4 cards of their deck.
Bruh.
It's a great little way of giving a Crush on hit to any Guardian attack, including weapons.
Oh.
What did Tim have to say about it?
Tim had this to say about Leave a Dent. It's a design concept that LSS has been showing off in the coming sets and in the past that Guardians can or should fatigue. I don't think this is the way to do it, but I think that this is a pretty interesting look into what they envision what the class can be.
Yeah, we've seen this mill sub-theme really fleshed out in the Guardian Mastery Pack, and I think it's cool. And
Yeah.
I think that this was what Mastery Pack Guardian was always going to be. I think a lot of people thought that the set was going to like save Guardian and they're going to print the new 6 for 20 on hit, discard your hand. And it's like, no, they were never going to print that card. They're going to make like a random sub theme a little bit better because that's what they were kind of always doing with these supplemental sets. And I think this is a really cool design that they use for it. I now can't wait for the next like Mill Valda to show up at our armory and like get a few sneaky little wins in.
Yeah, Mill has always been such a not powerful. It's been such a popular archetype in like Magic the Gathering, for instance. But I think I agree with Tim here. It's a really cool way to envision what Mill could look like in Flesh and Blood. I don't think it's going to be like viable or like the overarching theme of Mill, like whenever it comes to Flesh and Blood. But like you said, Clark, it is doing exactly what a supplemental set should be doing. Like if you look back to Everfest when we got like the Crouching Tiger card or Hyperdriver in Dynasty, like these cards didn't have any play at the moment, but think of what Zen or Max would be without these Hyperdriver or these Crouching Tiger cards. I think it's a really good way to introduce something now, but pay attention. It's going to come sooner or later.
Mill Guardian? That'd be pretty fucking sick.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
I would be excited if Mill Guardian became at all like viable.
I mean, Valda has that card where you discard your hand, draw a new one, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
But it's on hit, right?
Put them in their
yeah.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of really, really cool and interesting cards here.
Yeah, I mean, it's supplemental cards or supplemental sets and cards like these that make Flesh and Blood a bit friendlier to like the Johnnies of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a Johnny, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. Tim, thank you for your submission. If you want to submit a card to go here at the top of our Arsenal zone, then go ahead and jump on over to our Patreon. The link's in the description below and give us $5.
Yeah. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah. Also, don't forget, we're currently running a little bit of a Patreon giveaway for Super Slam Pitch and Prediction.
That's true.
Yeah. We didn't pitch that at the top of the episode, so I guess it'll go here.
Yeah. There's a tradition on our show where we try to predict things about the set before we get all the spoilers. And if you go to our Discord, there's a thread where you can leave your prediction, and we're going to pluck comments from that thing. And if you leave a prediction that becomes correct, that is true, that is insightful, you can win a month of membership to our $10 Patreon in October.
I think
In
we said
October.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Or you can go to last week's YouTube video 2 weeks ago, the Pitch and Predictions one, and leave a prediction there. We'll see it there too.
Do it.
Yeah.
I dare you.
All right. Now it is time. We got to end the episode, which means we got to go through our own Arsenal Zone cards.
Okay.
I want to start off with Fuzzy.
Oh.
So I've been thinking about cubes lately. I've always wanted to make a Flesh and Blood cube. So I've just been thinking, about cards that might go in a cube. And one that I think is always really cute and fun to throw in is Nimblism.
Ah.
Oh, Fuzzy fucking loves his little combo generics.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fact. Fuzzy fucking loves his combo generics.
And now there's more. There's Nimby, fucking Jack Be Quick, and all that shit.
Yeah,
There's a new extended art Nimblism. Did you get his Gym
bro.
Pack Nimblisms?
It is also known that Fuzzy does not open gem packs, so I do not have EA Nimblisms to give out.
Bro,
But I just love how easy this is to kind of toss into a cube, you know? If you've noticed that 1 or 2 or 3 of your heroes in your cube have an extra focus on cards with cost 1 or less, throw Nimblism and Nimble Strike in there. It gives a little bit more of a lean towards those heroes in your generics, which is something that's kind of nice to have, you know? I also like how LSS and I are on the same wavelength, because when they're like, what cards do we put in our draftable set? It's high C's. They were like, let's just fucking throw Nimblism in there. And then they also printed some extra support for it, you know?
Do you think this means that in the next set we're going to get new Slogism synergy cards?
Bro, that
could be.
actually really
Fuck, that should have been one of my predictions!
Oh, yeah.
Now one of the audience members are going to steal it!
Those pesky audience members.
Get in the comments, boys. You have to be the first or second or third one to put Slogism in Super Slam.
And make sure you at Clark so you add to his shame.
So that's what I've been thinking about lately, and I've got one for you and one for you.
Thank you, Fuzzy.
What about Clark?
The card that I've been thinking about recently is the card that fucking killed me inside.
No.
It fucking devastated me, man. Yellow Shred. What the fuck? So at the AGE this last weekend, I'm playing against Luke on stream.
Fucking Luke.
Oh god, well, he played it so fucking well, but even still, it tilts me to no end. Because the thing is like, I was checking his graveyard. I knew he had used the one yellow shred that's in like every list. Every single Slippy list has like one yellow shred. Every Marionette list has like one yellow shred. It's all one yellow shreds. So when he attacks me with like a little go again thing into Leave No Witnesses with one card in hand, I'm looking at Might stacked up on my board. I'm looking at Pummel in my arsenal, a CNC in hand, and I blocked his first attack. Or no, I go to block Leave No Witnesses because I was smart. I was like, I'll just take the first attack. It's his second attack that I need to block. So I save my blocking card. So I have CNC Pummel with a bunch of mites, and he hasn't been using his D-Reacts. He hasn't used a lot of D-Reacts this game. So I'm like, this is so likely to be a D-React. What am I playing around? Nothing pumps Leave No Witnesses. I even stop and I'm like, does anything pump Leave No Witnesses? No, just Shred. I've already seen one yellow Shred go to graveyard. I am in the clear. Block 3 and 1 and yellow Shred. Fuck! And I lose my CNC Pummel turn, and that was the winning play of the game. Me and Luke have talked about it afterwards. We dug through so much of that footage and talked about different moments and the different ways that like luck was on his side or on my side. But really, it was getting rid of that pummel. Because if I'm able to pummel on that turn and clear his arsenal and get 2 cards out of his hand, I flip enough to be able to win in the fatigue late game.
100%.
By being able to pressure his life total.
Yeah.
Joel, would you like to shout out a card?
For my card, I want to talk about a Brainstorm, which is a wizard instant that is blue and costs 3 and says, until end of turn, your hero gains. Whenever you draw a card this action phase, deal 1 arcane damage to any target. And the reason I want to talk about Brainstorm is because, well, it's an instant. That's the theme of the episode. But I also remember when Osilia was spoiled with... Shut up. Shut your mouth. And a lot of people in our Discord were
a lot of people.
Not just one particular person.
Not one host number 2.
Yeah. It was definitely somebody different. Fucking loser. Was really excited about Brainstorm, and it was like brewing this combo because with like Mind Warp or something, and like making your opponent draw a bunch of cards and like fucking bolting them for 1,000,000. And then one other buzzkill pointed out that it's only whenever you draw a card that you deal 1 damage. And
this was like right after the book burnings.
Yeah, exactly.
Right after they were like, no one gets to draw 2 anymore.
Yeah. So I just, it's not a card you see ever being played, but sometimes I think about it whenever I think about wizard combos. And I always look back to that moment of spoiler season and just giggle to myself over that person's misfortune, not host number 2. But yeah, that's what I wanted to talk about. Is there a 4th host that has a card, or are we?
I think
done?
that's it today.
Oh, okay.
unless you, the audience, want to apply to become another host of Pitch It To Me
What?
podcast.
Fuzzy, we're not doing that.
We're going to sell chocolate bars, and one of the chocolate bars will contain a golden tipple.
That's so funny.
Specifically, a yellow golden tipple from Treasure Pack.
Yeah, and if you find that, you get to come to the.
You replace
you
me.
get to fly to Long Beach. You get the pleasure of spending money on a ticket and housing to come to Long Beach and record an episode of Pitch It To Me.
But you might be able to
podcast.
come to locals with us and have some pizza.
Well, thanks for listening to us wax on about instants in the game. We hope you enjoyed listening.
Yeah.
Yeah, and be sure to stay tuned on the spoiler season in our Discord because that's the only place where you can get your spoilers.
Oh, and in the comments, you have to start every comment with "in response."
Or a whole priority.
Yeah.
Well, they're writing a response.
Oh my god, shut the hell up. All right, I'm done with these nerds. Until next time, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Pitch It To Me podcast is hosted by Fuzzy Delp, Clark Moore, and Joel Recinos. Executive producer, Talon Stradley. Logistics coordinator, John Farkas. Music by Dillon Hulse. Logo by Han V. Sound mixing, Christopher Moore. And last but not least, you. Thank you for listening. Please give us a follow on your favorite social media platform at Pitch It To Me podcast.